It is the Resistance Report for February 22nd, 2017. Good evening. You are having an impact. Congress is on recess, and members of Congress all over the country are hearing from you. They are confronted by demonstrators. They're confronted by constituents who are getting increasingly noisy. They want answers. You are demanding answers. And a lot of these members of Congress are surprised. They have not actually seen their engaged and activist constituents for years. Many of them have been in safe seats. They haven't confronted anybody. They haven't had to deal with anybody. They have not had to be accountable. And places that you never expected, in the 7th District, for example, Congressional District of Virginia, Congressman David Brat, one of the most conservative members of Congress, Republican, was confronted by angry demonstrators, and he was surprised. Also in Montana, Senator Stephen Daines, senator, found that when he went to address state senators, state members of the legislature, he was confronted by many protesters, in fact so many protesters that Senator Daines, Republican senator from Montana, turned around and he hightailed out of there. Didn't want to confront anybody. What did the demonstrators there were complaining that he had not had the simple courtesy to respond to their request for a town hall. Last night, Donald Trump tweeted, quote, "The so-called angry crowds in home districts of some Republicans are actually, in numerous cases, planned out by liberal activists. Sad!" exclamation point. Well, Donald Trump, let me just tell you something. If you happen to be watching, I don't think you are, but if you happen to be watching, let me just tell you, what you label liberal activists are Americans. They have a right to protest. They have a right to speak up. Just because you label them as liberals and label them as activists doesn't make them irrelevant. In fact, all citizens should be activists. That's what we want, Donald Trump. I know you would be happier, perhaps, if citizens were not activists. In fact, if you simply could call all the shots, if you could be kind of dictator-in-chief. But let me tell you, Mr. Trump, you're not. And citizen activists are rising all over the country. A remarkable and very revealing comment, by the way, from Mitch McConnell, who yesterday, when faced with nearly 1,000 protesters in Kentucky, Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, at a private invitation-only dinner, some of whom were shouting, "No ban, no wall, Mitch McConnell, take our call." Just take our call, Mitch McConnell. Just be responsive. What did McConnell do? What did McConnell say? Why are they protesting? McConnell asked rhetorically. They didn't like the results of the election, he said. They had their shot in the election, but in this country, when you win the election, you get to make policy. I always remind people, said Mitch McConnell, winners make policy and losers go home. Winners make policy, losers go home. Is that right, Mitch McConnell? I don't remember you going home when Barack Obama was declared the winner of the presidency. In fact, not only did you not go home, Mitch McConnell, but you stonewalled. You didn't allow anything to get through the Senate, practically anything. You didn't even allow a vote on Merrick Garland. But instead of making you the model for not going home, let's make the model all of the people around the country, the majority, the vast majority, who did not vote for Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. So are you saying that the losers in this case of the electoral vote, that vast majority of Americans who voted for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump, they should go home and be silent? Mitch McConnell, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea how a democracy functions. Losers don't go home in a democracy. They continue to fight. They continue to fight for what they believe is right, Mitch McConnell. And by the way, winners don't get to do whatever they want to do. I increasingly come across Trump surrogates, usually when I'm debating one on television, who, when they get into a corner, and when I try to debate them into a corner just by raising facts, just by using logic and analysis, when they're in the corner, what do they say? Well, we won the election. Donald Trump is president. That's as if saying no other logical or factual or analytic argument is relevant. Well, I'm terribly sorry. Just because Donald Trump technically, electorally won the election doesn't mean he can do anything. Mitch McConnell, it doesn't mean you can do anything. Or Senate or House Republicans can do anything. They can't trample on the Constitution, for example. They have got to follow the laws that are in place right now. There's a law, in fact, there is a constitutional provision against the establishment of a religion in America, which means just because Republicans and Donald Trump won the Electoral College doesn't mean that he can establish a religion in the United States and trample on the rights of Muslim Americans or anybody who doesn't happen to be a Christian American. There are also laws, First Amendment, guaranteeing a free press, independent press. And the third article of the Constitution, guaranteeing an independent judiciary, doesn't mean that Donald Trump can just trash the judiciary and the press. Does that? The Constitution provides for due process of law. Doesn't mean that immigration officials can just do whatever they want to whomever they want, stop anybody they want, profile anybody who happens to look like they might be Latino. And while we're at it, does Jeff Sessions, the new Attorney General, really think the American public is in danger from transgendered kids? I'm sorry. Transgendered kids are the ones who are really in danger now from all the Trump hate-mongering. So what is this? Winners make policy and losers go home. If you're a public official, you are a public servant. You have an ongoing responsibility to listen to all your constituents, not just those who supported Donald Trump. We don't live in a zero-sum society, Mitch McConnell, comprised of winners and losers. We live in a democratic society made up of public servants, and you have an obligation to serve all the people. All the people. And Donald Trump has an obligation to serve all the people. And the winners don't have a right to repeatedly lie to the American people. Does that mean just because you won, you can lie? You know, all of this fuss about immigration right now, this focus on undocumented immigrants, huge number of immigration enforcement people are going to be hired, local sheriffs are going to be deputized, a wall is going to be built, billions of dollars are going to be spent. This now becomes one of the central focuses of America. This becomes one of the highest priorities in the United States. Why? Because Donald Trump lied repeatedly to the American public. Donald Trump said during the campaign that crime is increasing, that immigration, illegal immigration, is increasing in the United States, that undocumented immigrants in the United States are responsible for a disproportionate amount of crime in the United States. Those lies, repeated over and over and over again, have formed the basis for what Donald Trump is now doing, but they are all lies. Actually, crime is going down. It's been going down for years. Actually, immigrants who are illegal, the number and the rate are going down. Actually, undocumented immigrants in the United States are responsible for a lower percentage of crimes in the United States than native-born people in the United States. And so all of this effort, all of this energy, all of this money, all of these resources now being devoted to finding and arresting and deporting so-called illegal aliens, instead of doing a lot of other things that we could and should be doing in this country in terms of health care and education and worrying about the homeless and all sorts of things that we could be and should be doing, we are making this the number one priority right now on the basis of lies, a tissue of lies. Well, just because you won doesn't mean you can lie. And what we're doing right now is inhumane to a lot of families. But here's the good news. Donald Trump is sinking like a stone, according to polls, and I'm not talking about Democratic polls. I'm not talking even about pollsters that normally find for Democrats. Quinnipiac. The Quinnipiac poll is a poll that traditionally, actually, if it has any bias at all, if there's any margin of error at all, it errs on the side of Republicans. Well, the latest Quinnipiac poll out today shows that less than 5 weeks into his presidency, Donald Trump has an approval rating of 38%. 38% of Americans approve the job that Donald Trump is doing. And how many disapprove? 55% disapprove. A new record for a president at this stage in his presidency, and even a new record for Donald Trump. His approval is 4 points lower than just 2 weeks ago. And his disapproval rating has climbed steadily. According to this poll, which again, if it errs in any direction, it errs in favor of Republicans traditionally. Donald Trump's disapproval rating has climbed steadily from 44% days after he took office to 51% on February 7th, and now, today, 55%. According to Tim Malloy, assistant director of the Quinnipiac poll, quote, President Donald Trump's popularity is sinking like a rock. He gets slammed on honesty, on empathy, on level-headedness, and the ability to unite. And 2 of his strong points, leadership and intelligence, are sinking to new lows. This is a terrible survey 1 month in, unquote. What do I make of this? Well, what I make of it is that a majority of Americans have common sense. 38% of Americans who still approve of Donald Trump, they are dwindling. I don't know where they're getting their information from. Fox News, Breitbart News. But maybe even they will come around when they lose their health care, or they see that the great new jobs that Donald Trump is promising actually don't ever appear, or they see that the rich and big corporations are getting tax cuts and they are not, or when they get sick of paying for Donald Trump's vacations, or they see all the Wall Street bankers and plutocrats and oligarchs that Donald Trump has brought into his administration, who have working people's interests not at all at heart, who actually care only about the profitability of big banks and big corporations. Maybe then the 38% will dwindle further. And as that 38% approval continues to drop, maybe then Republicans in Congress will be more willing to stand up to Donald Trump and more willing to entertain the possibility that many of the things Donald Trump has been doing in the first weeks, even in the first weeks of his administration, are illegal, unconstitutional, and perhaps even merit a bill of impeachment, particularly as the noose tightens around the Russian connection. Your questions, please. I'll do my best to answer them. I haven't seen the questions, so can't guarantee that I can answer them. Nancy Kalowski, Klaus Kalusi, is that how you pronounce it? I called Republican Tom MacArthur's office and spoke with his assistant, who said he won't have town halls. Only tea by invitation. Oh, that's too bad. Tea by invitation. I'm so frustrated. What can I do? Nancy, what you can do is what many are doing around the country when their members of Congress refuse to have any kind of town hall. You can invite your neighbors, invite your friends, have your own town hall, make clear that he is invited to attend, have a seat for him, a chair for him, have a little cardboard cutout with his picture right there on top of the chair, on top of the cardboard cutout, and invite the press and talk about why you wonder he is so unresponsive to his constituents and what that may mean when he runs again for Congress. Christine Schultz, the whole Russia investigation seems very quiet this week. Do you think this is a good or bad sign? Well, Christine, the reason it's quiet this week is this is recess. So there's nobody in Washington. I can tell you, when I served in Washington, congressional recesses were the time that I, as a cabinet member, got things done because it was quiet in Washington. There were not a lot of congressmen who were appearing before the television cameras. There were not a lot of congressmen who were asking me to come and testify. So this doesn't mean that nothing is happening. The actual work of Congress, the staffers, the investigations, everybody is still doing that. It's just that the members of Congress are out of town. So very, very little news is being made. Donald Palgrave, what do you think it means that the market is doing so well and the Dow Industrial Average is so high? Do we give Trump credit, or is it just proof that he's in cahoots with Wall Street? Donald, the reason that the Wall Street, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average and other indices of stock prices are doing very, very well is because corporate profits have never been as high. And why are corporate profits high? Well, partly because corporations, a lot of people assume that corporations are going to be doing even better. The deck is stacked in favor of large corporations, and those large corporations are also looking forward to a tax cut, a big corporate tax cut. Donald Trump and Republicans have made it very clear that there's going to be a lot of money on the table for big corporations, and they are also getting ready for a big cut in health and safety and environmental and labor regulations, which will mean they think even more corporate profits. So the stock market is anticipating all of this. It doesn't mean any good news for average American workers. It doesn't mean good news for America. All it means is good news for people who hold a lot of shares of stock. And in fact, I should remind you that 80% of the value of the stock market is owned by the richest 10% of Americans. So don't start thinking that suddenly the stock market is reflective of the well-being of most Americans. It is not. Kimberly Jenkins, sir, is there any good side to discussing issues with Trump supporters who can't seem to see the forest for the trees, or is it futile? Kimberly, it's never futile. I talked to Trump supporters. Some of them voted for Trump because they frankly hated Hillary Clinton and couldn't bear the idea of Hillary Clinton being president. It wasn't that they loved Donald Trump. In fact, many of them right now tell me that if they had to do it over again, they might reconsider and actually vote for Hillary Clinton. But the fact that they voted for Donald Trump doesn't mean that they are necessarily bigoted or racist or xenophobic or misogynist or haters. In fact, many Trump voters, and remember, we're talking about only 24% of the voting population, the eligible voting population, 24%, less than a quarter voted for Donald Trump. Many didn't bother to vote at all, but less than a quarter voted for Donald Trump. And again, my view is that many of them did not vote for him because they liked him. They just didn't like his major Democratic opponent more. So by all means, talk to them. We've got to get many independents. We've got to get many Republicans together with Democrats. This is not and should not be perceived as a partisan movement. This has got to be understood as a broad-based, bipartisan, nonpartisan movement. Americans standing up and saying, we are going to reclaim our democracy, we're going to reclaim our economy from the oligarchs, the plutocrats, and Donald Trump is one of them. Jessica Chastain, can you do a video series on how to run for office? Good idea. We'll do that. And you thought it, but seriously, I hope many of you are considering running for office. This is a great year. There are a lot of people who are looking not only to run for office, but also at good candidates, not only for Congress, for Senate, for the House, also for state legislatures, also for your local city council, for your school board. Get involved. Run this year. Dion Russell, is there such a thing as Republicans or Democrats anymore? Dion Russell, rather. Dion, that's a good question. Most people actually consider themselves independent. Very few Americans are strongly identified or feel themselves strongly identified with either the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. In fact, as I've said before, the major divide in America is becoming less and less the old big government, small government, left versus right, Democrat versus Republican divide. More and more the divide is becoming either authoritarian or democratic, small d. That is, either you really are in favor of a government that is run by a strong man, in this case Donald Trump, or you understand and value our democracy and institutions of our democracy, and you want to strengthen those institutions. We have two more questions. One from Glenn Weiser. Is anything being done to investigate White House conflicts of interest? Glenn, yes, there are a number of lawsuits underway. There are a number of investigations underway, but those investigations, many of them, are being undertaken by investigative reporters. There is no investigation I am aware of on Capitol Hill, in the Senate or in the House, of Donald Trump's conflicts of interest. Why is that? It's because Republicans are in charge of both the House and the Senate. There is a House Oversight Committee that is supposed to investigate such things as conflicts of interest. It spent years, when Republicans ran it, as they do now, looking at Obama and every trip Obama took and every possible conflict that anybody could find. They couldn't find anything. It was a fishing expedition. Now they have Donald Trump, the king of the conflicts of interest, and that House Oversight Committee is doing absolutely zilch. But we do have investigative reporters. We do have a lot of private sector groups and think tanks that are gathering as much information as they can. And thank goodness we still have a Freedom of Information Act, which enables the public to get a lot of information from the government. And this is the last question, is from Karine Guyonette, is that right? Sailor. How do you remain optimistic with each passing day? Karine, I don't think there's any choice, quite frankly. If we are either pessimistic or in despair or in panic, or if we fall into cynicism, then we are done for. That's exactly what Trump would like. He'd like all of us to give up. He'd like all of us to get so depressed we are immobilized. And we're not going to do that. We are going to fight back, because fighting back is the only option we have. Many of you are doing that. I want to commend you. Many of you are becoming activists. Some of you for the first time in your lives. I want to commend you for that. Activism doesn't mean you've got to devote your entire life to politics or to political activism. It can mean only that this is a practice. It's a practice. Like any other practice. You take time every day, or you take time every week, and you devote yourself to it. You join with others. You search out indivisibleguide.com. And I want to say that once more, indivisibleguide.com. We have a video on this. You search out others who also want to form an indivisible group, a kind of resistance group. You get together with them. There is strength in numbers. And not only do you hold your representative and your senators accountable, but you join with others around the country in other states, maybe in purple states that could become blue states, or maybe with others who are not particularly partisan, either Republican or Democrat, but they care about this country. They care about our institutions of government. They care about the future. They don't like what's going on. They're concerned about their children. There are many, many millions of Americans like you who don't want to fall into the kind of path toward tyranny that we are now on. And that's a good thing. And that keeps me optimistic. And on that note, tonight's resistance report is over, and I will see you tomorrow.